Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. One of my most wanted DC Omnis is finally real! That's right, all you minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I have the pleasure to do my overview of the Secret Six by Gail Simone Omnibus Volume 1 from DC Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So what we're looking at here today is the Secret Six by Gail Simone Omnibus. That's right, this is the latest omnibus with Gail Simone's name on it. And here we have the cover, DC logo, the Secret Six logo, and then some of our main, I don't want to say the main characters, because if you know anything about the Secret Six, you know the lineup changes up from time to time. But some of the characters, like Scandal Savage there, or Catman, Deadshot, Jeanette, and Bane, that's right, even Bane makes it into the list. And Ragdoll there. And then the spine of the book featuring those. I really like the design of this, by the way. Secret Six, Gail Simone Omnibus Volume 1, Scott, Eaglesham, Hazelwood, and Wright. Assassins, murderers, maniacs, and they're the good guys. This is such an interesting lineup here. And this is other images of those characters right there. And by Gail Simone, Omnibus Volume 1, but we have Nicole Scott, Dale Eaglesham, Doug Hazelwood, and Jason Wright also taking that top billing. Underneath the dust jacket, or let's actually look at the flaps here, they're pink, with Gail Simone, Nicole Scott, Dale Eaglesham, Doug Hazelwood, Jason Wright, and Travis Lanham. And just the bio on the creators. Now, here's what we have underneath the dust jacket. Really like the art on board. That's a cool design, with different images of our key players here, including some that, well, never mind. I just won't spoil the omnibus. And the same image that was on the spine of the dust jacket, but this time around has a black border. Kind of like the way that this stands out, though. That pink on Jeanette and Catman, solid. Now, unfortunately, it is the same image in the back here as it is in the front. Wish they had taken this time to use another one of those amazing covers for the back image, but not a deal breaker or anything. Now, we are going to crack this book open. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, when this takes place, talk about what's collected in here, talk about the stories found in here, show the artwork, talk about the mapping, and look at the extras and build of the book. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. I love this image because it's one of my favorite covers from the trade paperback Deaths. And there you have your Secret Six by Gail Simone Omnibus Volume 1. That's the title page, and over here are the credits. So you have Gail Simone, Tony Bedard, John Ostrander, Scott Beatty, and Mark Waid. Nicola Scott, Del Eaglesham, Brad Walker, Carlos Rodriguez, Jimmy Calafiore taking the top billing. Doug Hazelwood, Jimmy Palmiotti, Wade Vaughn, Growl Badger taking the Inkers top billing, and Jason Wright, and Snow Cone, Paul Mounts. Heck yeah, I love seeing Paul Mounts as colors, and your lettering by Travis Landman and Pat Brozo. Now, other people as well. Let's go ahead and take out the table of contents. This book has a lot of new things in it, which is what I loved about this. And from time to time, when I get books, here's your introduction, by the way, and then where you're going to find each of these issues, in what page, and when it originally came out, what issue it came from. What I was saying is, when I get these books in, if I've read something, I'll probably skim through here, make sure everything looks okay, make sure in what order it's in. Sometimes things do pass me by, though, if I've reread something so many times, like X-Men. Oh my gosh, I can flip through there and go, oh, okay, this is that. Sometimes if I'm not familiar with really familiar with the material, I'll try to read the entire book to kind of familiarize myself with it. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer, like Silver Age. Sometimes I love something so much that what can I say? I read cover to cover because I've read this so many times in trade paperbacks and in omnibus format, because some of this is collected in omnibus format, but I don't care. I absolutely love the stories in here, so I read this cover to cover. So collected in here is Villains United 1 through 6, and then Villains United, the Infinite Crisis Special number 1, Birds of Prey 104 to 109, and Secret 6 Volume 2 1 through 6, Secret 6 Volume 3 1 through 16, and then stories from 52, 28, and Countdown 22. Now, the most amazing thing about this, and I worry about collections like this whenever you're talking about creator-centric ones, this does collect the story by John Ostrander, so that issue is not skipped in here. I believe that's issue 14 or 15, if I'm not mistaken. So that is in here. So it doesn't just have to be written by Gail Simone. And what do I mean by that? Well, because in the past, whenever we've had collections by creators like the Peter Tomasi Green Lantern Corps, for example, they skip those Keith Giffen issues, and they skip things like by Tony Bedard. We've seen it done, and I was worried it would do it here, but nope, it is all in here. So, I guess now that I've talked about that, I do want to talk about the stories, but before I do, in case you don't want to know anything about the stories, you just want to jump into the extras, I want to say something about the mapping. There is something here that I think was a mistake, and that is the Birds of Prey story being collected before the Secret 6 miniseries. That Secret 6 miniseries took place, and actually was published before the Birds of Prey story, because something happens at the end of Birds of Prey that sets up the ongoing series. So I'm not sure why they decided to do that. I think it was a mistake. And it does, don't get me wrong, it doesn't take away anything from here. It is still a wonderful collection. Everything else is mapped completely perfectly. But it is a little confusing if you've never read the stories to read those Birds of Prey issues, and then you jump into Secret 6 miniseries, and you're going to be like, wait a second, but that's, I don't want to spoil what happens. But yes, it is confusing. But that's the reason why, because those Birds of Prey issues were supposed to be read after the Secret 6 miniseries, before the ongoing series. But the way this is mapped, it has it Birds of Prey and then Secret 6. So everything else is mapped perfectly, by the way. And so, yeah, of course, if you want to jump around, then feel free to jump around. All right. Spoilers, because I have to talk about this amazing story. And I just love it so much. All right, so we kick it off with Villains United. Villains United is kind of your, hey, we need to bring back the Suicide Squad. So you have characters like Deadshot here. You have the Fiddler, don't worry. Bam, he's gone. The Parademon. You've got characters like Scandal Savage right here. Catman ends up getting recruited. Cheshire right there. And Ragdoll, the new Ragdoll. So you actually have some new characters like Scandal and Ragdoll and Parademon, while you have 3 characters that have existed in the DC universe. Now, what's going on through here? Well, the villains are getting together because of the events, and this is perfect, because I just talked about this, of Identity Crisis. They're using the thing that happened to Dr. Light as the backbone of this foundation, of having all these villains kind of like joining a union. And when villains are recruiting other villains, they're like, well, we're not taking no for an answer. And some of these villains, like Catman, did. So now, when refusing somebody like Dr. Psycho and Talia al Ghul, they are automatically put on a list. And it's not good to be on that list. And what's really interesting about this is that I had no idea until reading this omnibus that Gail Simone wanted to use A-list villains for this. But what makes this work is the fact that they're using these, she doesn't even call them C-list, she calls them Z-list villains. Catman, Deadshot though, Deadshot's at least a C-list villain, but even because before the movie, he was just a great character. So the first part that is collected in here is the Villains United story. And in Villains United, it is the villains that are coming up and wanting to capture these guys because somebody's hiring these guys to do some jobs, and that mystery isn't revealed until the pages of Infinite Crisis. So here you have the Secret Six, if you will, and then you have the villains over here, or the Society, as they call themselves. So you have somebody like Deathstroke, Black Adam, Calculator, and Dr. Psycho. Now, some of these guys could easily be taken out. Others, not so much. But they are in the business of destroying good guys, so when a villain says no, they hold that against them. So they end up getting captured, and as I mentioned when I looked at the cover, like, the cast is forever changing. Now, the cast is forever changing because sometimes they don't make it out of a story, or sometimes they end up leaving. I do love their Black Ops costume. That's so awesome when they're infiltrating this particular base. And in here, you're also, what's really interesting is, like, this ties heavily into Infinite Crisis. Heavily, including the death of a major character from Crisis on Infinite Earths that gets killed in the miniseries of Villains United. Now, the other thing that's collected in here is Villains United, the one-shot. It's the Infinite Crisis special. And that Infinite Crisis special, this one right here, takes place during the events of Infinite Crisis. Now, if you have the Infinite Crisis Omnibus, yes, all of this has been collected in there, and yes, in proper reading order. But if you're just wondering about the Secret Six and what they're up to, then this is good. The only thing I wish they had added was maybe a little blurb as to, like, this is what's going on in Infinite Crisis during this time, or this Villains United miniseries leads into Infinite Crisis #1 and got kicked off by the OMAC project. Now, we do have the Birds of Prey issue in here. And like I said, these issues do feature the Secret Six. Now, it's a new version of the Secret Six, but it's also a new version of the Birds of Prey. Like, you have the Spy Smasher, and you have Lady Blackhawk there. You have the Huntress, and you've got Hawk Girl. So it's during that time that they're transitioning. There is a mission here that takes place in Russia. I don't want to reveal what the mission is, because it's the return of a character from a long time ago. And I know that's being vague, but I'm trying to be as vague as possible. But it is a reunion of the Secret Six. This time around, you have Scandal, you have Ragdoll, Deadshot, Catman, but they're joined by Knockout, who's Scandal's lady. She's the one from Apocalypse. And then you have Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn just kind of joins because they needed somebody to join. As I mentioned, this story does take place before the events of the ongoing Secret Six. So what should have come before this is this right here, the Secret Six miniseries. So this miniseries was supposed to take place before Birds of Prey, and this miniseries showcases a newer team outside of what happened in the events of Infinite Crisis. So now you have Mad Hatter being recruited, and he can't properly be trusted, but this is where Knockout joins the team, and you see the relationship between her and Scandal. And oh my gosh, I gotta give it to Brad Walker for properly placing that hair. My goodness, that must have been a task. And that is one thing about Gail Simone's Secret Six. It does not shy away from violence. It doesn't shy away from sex. It doesn't shy away from maybe some strong language. And I'm all here for it. I think it's such a badass series. So the basic idea behind this is that they are a group of villains that aren't really trying to do the right thing, but they're just villains for hire. They will work for anybody. Yeah, some of them have redeemable qualities about them, but at the end of the day, they can't even trust each other. And this is the fight against the Doom Patrol in this miniseries. We do have the return of Vandal Savage. And oh my gosh, there is some drama within the team because there's misunderstandings. Especially when you have a relationship between a human and somebody from Apocalypse who doesn't even understand the idea of what sex is and how important it is when you're in a relationship. Man, it just covers everything. I absolutely love this series, and it brought back so many memories. It also made me so mad again at Gail Simone for a couple of the choices that happens here, because when you get used to a character and then the character goes away, you're like, oh, come on, that wasn't fair. All right, so let's get to the ongoing series. So this is the ongoing series that takes place after the Birds of Prey issues. And man, those Birds of Prey issues, by the way, oh, I cannot wait for a Birds of Prey Omnibus. I'm hoping after volume 2 of this we get one. So in this particular series right here, or in the ongoing series, we are going to have a new team. A new team, same as the old, right? You get some C-list villains, or Z as she likes to call them, in here. But this is when DC said, yes, we have enough faith in these characters of Catman, Deadshot, Scandal, Ragdoll, and Knockout, and whoever's left over. Let's give them an ongoing series. And man, Nicola Scott now joining Gail Simone. Nicola Scott coming over from the pages of course, Birds of Prey, which we saw a little bit earlier. And when the series was launched, they did get an addition, a couple of new additions of some new team members. So you have Bane, of all people. I mentioned him in the beginning. And I know some people are rolling their eyes. They're like, Bane, the guy that took Batman down, the guy that took over Gotham, this evil dude. But he works. It actually works. And when things are happening, you're kind of cheering for the guy. You got to keep in mind, this is also the guy that gave up Venom, the guy that was trying to do the right thing and defeat Batman with his own physique, the guy that became a follower of Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, depending on how you want to say it. And it makes sense for somebody like that to join the Secret Six. So in this particular first story arc here, there is this character named Junior who has his own secrets, his or her own secrets. And what they're doing is hiring a bunch of villains to go and pretty much find a card that was stolen from him by Tarantula, this character right here, who's, of course, probably infamous from the run on Nightwing by Devin Grayson. But this is also where they meet another character that will join the team, and that is Jeanette. And Jeanette has a secret about her that I did not see coming. And she ends up becoming the other sixth character on the Secret Six. Now, this is the character I was talking about. This is Junior, who apparently runs the West Coast mob. But regardless, this first 6-issue story arc is about setting up the new Secret Six. You do have the return of a Mad Hatter here. And remember when I said you can't trust any of these characters? Man, you're going to be so mad when they end up betraying each other. It gets ridiculous, but I love it. There's even a Batman RIP issue in here. That's kind of like a Battle for the Cowl type of story. And that leads into the Amazonian story that is collected in here, where it deals with this new villain named Mr. Smith and how he's a slave trader. And what he's building is this big prison that he's going to put the Secret Six in. Again, they keep getting hired for different types of jobs. And this is also the return of Artemis. So you have a bunch of the Amazons that are tied to this particular story. And this is the story arc where you're going to see Jeanette, like, remind you why she is part of this team and why she was chosen. And I did not see that coming. I thought that was so freaking awesome. But that is the next story arc that's collected in here. And then you have the return of John Ostrander for issue number 15. I thought it was 14, but no, 14 is the wrap-up of Deaths. But this is written by him, and it just focuses on the character of Deadshot. Tells a little bit of a background story, and also shows what he's been doing on the side, as opposed to being on the Secrets, just the Secret Six. Now, the next story arc, oh my gosh, this one is so good. And it's also the return of Black Alice and where she ends up joining the team. I don't think I've done a pretty good job so far as to not spoiling the big stories in here, or big reveals or twists and turns. But I feel like to kind of get the spirit of this, why I love this series so much, I have to talk about this particular story, and that is in issue number 16, the final issue that's collected in here. So if you've ever trusted me before and like, oh man, Omar's right, this story was awesome, this story was badass, by all means, go and get this. This is amazing. If you're kind of halfway, like midway, like, I don't know yet, maybe, we'll see, what is he talking about? Or if you don't care about spoilers, this isn't a big spoiler, but this just kind of shows you why a lot of us are fans of this series. Okay, so in this particular issue number 16 is a standalone issue, and I said this is when Black Alice ends up joining the team. So we have this character of Enos, who is going to prison. He's being transferred, and what he did, as you get from the dialogue, is that he is known for killing young girls. And one young girl in particular, well, what happens is that you have Catman and Deadshot breaking him out of prison. So he's like, oh my gosh, thank you guys, who hired you? Well, this is Gerardo Sanchez, Katie's father, and Katie was one of his victims. And he's the one that hired both Catman and Deadshot to go and get this guy out. So they leave him there alone with this killer of his daughter and a knife. So that's the point of the story. Like, they're not the most well-behaved or the best people to be around or even heroes, but there is a certain goodness in them. And don't get me wrong, Deadshot will remind you that he's an assassin. Sometimes you get so pissed at him for just not listening to orders or just killing the wrong person. But I thought, man, that is so good. It's so deep. They're doing it for money. They're not doing it because it's the right thing. Or maybe there is a little bit of that in there. But whatever it is, Black Alice sees that in them, and she's like, how do I join, and how much money do I make? So that's where she forces herself to join the team. And that's where this issue ends. I don't want to reveal what ends up happening there or what her powers are. What is really cool is that we do have the 52 issues in here. Let me rephrase that. Not 52 issues, but 52, the series. And the series featured the origin of the DC Universe, or the history of the DC Universe, and this time around, it's Mark Waid writing Catman here, with Dale Eaglesham doing the artwork, and then Scott Beatty and Freddie Williams II telling the origin of Deadshot. Now, all the way in the back, you have the Villains United pencils right here by J.G. Jones, the trade paperback, Dead of Winter, by Stefan Rao. And you have the pencils and the pinup over here. And the cover sketches by Nicola Scott. I love that about this, that it also shows you the cover sketches. This is one of my favorite things. This is the making of the Secret Six. So it's the ongoing starter notes. There's also a script in here, the outlines. This is the script to issue number 9 of the ongoing series. But my absolute favorite thing that I've never read, this is also the sketchbook in here of the different characters and their designs. My absolute favorite thing that I've never read were all these notes back here by Gail Simone. What she did was reread the stories and then write some notes and memories about the particular time, who she was working with. That's freaking awesome, man. Like, I wish more writers would do that. That is such a wonderful addition to this. Now, I also don't own the fat trade paperbacks. I have the skinny trades. So this might have been there, but I feel like it's new. Because she talks about never going back and rereading her stories. Gail Simone interviews Dale Eaglesham right there. And also Brad Walker and Nicola Scott and Jim Calafiore. And then the biography on the creators. Now, let's look at the binding. 928 pages. Not that big of an eye, but we've seen a lot smaller. But we've also seen a lot bigger. And this book has sewn binding. It is using the new type of paper stock. So you do have some minimal bleed through. It's not very much, but it is still there. And the last thing I want to say, actually, let me show you what a spread page looks like with that eye. There is just a little bit of gutter loss. It's not very big, but it is still there. The other thing that I was going to say is, don't let that one thing keep you from buying the book about the way the book is mapped with those issues of Birds of Prey coming before the Secret Six first miniseries. This is an amazing read. And you all know me, whenever I do overviews, I stay neutral or try to, unless I really love something. And you can usually tell with my tone, go, oh my god, look at this, this is amazing. But I do try to find the good in everything. But damn, this book is... It's easy to find the good in something like this. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. That was the page count, the content, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking this up, if you've never read it and you're going into this completely blind, or if you have read it, you own it in trade, you own it in thick trades, you own it in single issues, you just love it so much, you need to get the omnibus. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And who else is ready for that Birds of Prey omnibus by Gail Simone? We're ready, right? I'm not saying it's coming out, but hey, it needs to. That Chuck Dixon era, oh man, I love Gail Simone's Birds of Prey, though, with Ed Benes on art and then Nicola Scott. Anyway, way ahead of myself, we still need a volume 2 of Secret 6. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.